My friends have been adamant that I watch Chainsaw Man. And I always saw the poster for it, and I saw that got critical acclaim, and I was always interested in checking it out. In fact, one of my friends who knows how obsessed with film I am showed me the full intro to it one night, and we counted down like all the movie references just in the title sequence. You have things like Pulp Fiction, The Big Lebowski, The Ring, Reservoir Dogs, No Country for Old Men, Fight Club, Jeepers Creepers, probably a ton other that I didn't even realize at the time. Mm-hmm. But when I was watching it, like, I was trying to get into it. I saw, like, the first 4 or 5 episodes, and I was like, okay, I mean, it's cool. You know, like, the character designs, I think, are great. The animation is really, really, like, cool. I liked seeing, like, all the imagery that they made. But one thing that kept on annoying me was just, like, how kid-friendly or, like, tween-friendly it seemed like the show was. You know, like, there's a 5-episode story arc on how Denji, the main character of the show, is trying to, like, fondle breasts and, like, dealing with his first kiss. And I was just like, how is this show gain as good reviews as it is?
Did you rate the episodes as you were watching them?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so like the first 5 that you're just talking about now, what'd you give the first episode? Because that one doesn't really concentrate.
First episode, actually, yeah, I enjoyed. I gave it an 8.
It doesn't concentrate as much on his obsession with women because this is just kind of his background. It's
right.
How he got his powers. So you gave that one
I gave it an 8.
So did I. So that's called Dog with Chainsaw. And then episode 2 is really where we kind of see his immaturity come out.
Yeah.
Right?
He keeps on talking about, like, all the cute girls that he's seen, and I was just like, what is this?
Well, he gets put to work, so now that he is half of a devil, he's valuable because he can kill a bunch of devils, and so he joins this agency, and the person in charge he has a huge crush on. Yeah. And so what'd you give that episode?
I gave it a 6.5.
Okay, so it was Arrival in Tokyo. I give it 6. So I think we're in alignment right now. Episode 3, Meowie's Whereabouts. That's where he gets teamed up with another partner. Power, and she's got her own, like, he also has a crush on, but because she's also a fiend, which is a devil human, not like him, but like more devil than human, he ends up helping her try to take her cat back.
Yeah, Meowie.
That's like the one thing she cares about in the world, and then she betrays him. And what'd you give that episode?
I actually really enjoyed it. It was my favorite one up until that point. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I thought that the ending fight scene with the bad devil was great. I gave it a 9 out of 10.
I gave it an 8 out of 10 still. But I agree with you. It was the best of the 3. And then the 4th episode comes along. It's called Rescue, and it deals with the aftermath, I think, of Meowie's Whereabouts. And what devil do they fight in that one?
The Leech Devil. That's how it starts off. And then what happens is Aki really wants Denji to be out of the group, but they have that little talk where he's like, look, I'll keep you in the group, but you have to, like, follow my command and follow my orders. And then he's like, okay. And then Power ends up moving in at the very end of the episode.
That's right. Okay, so now it's Aki, Power, and Denji living as roommates, and you can tell that Power and Denji are just off the walls crazy, and Aki is the only reasonable, like, human in the building.
Yeah, but Denji is also, like, not really happy with Power.
Denji is not cool with Power because Power doesn't want to bathe, she doesn't want to eat vegetables, she acts even more childish than him sometimes.
And it has one of the weirdest cliffhangers. First off, I really like the cliffhangers in this show because they end not where normal shows end. Like, a climax will literally be about to hit, and then it'll just finish off. Mm-hmm. But this one ended with, like, Power, she's in the bathroom, and so is Denji, and she's like, you can finally cut my breast.
So the storyline behind Meowie's Whereabouts was half the reason that he wanted to fight this devil and get the cat back was because he was promised to be able to fondle her afterwards. And in this one, it actually, by the end of episode 4, she traps him in the bathroom and says, hey, you get 3 squeezes, right? And he just almost has a heart attack because of how excited he is.
Probably my least favorite episode. I gave it like a 6 out of 10.
I also gave it a 6 out of 10. And then episode 5 comes along. Gun Devil starts right in the bathroom scene again. And he finally gets his opportunity to squeeze some breasts. And what happens? We find out that
not only are they fake.
Well, they're not fake, but like she has padding. And what else?
And the experience to him is just underwhelming.
Yeah, I don't know what the underlying message is because it's not as if Denji goes into like deep depression when he sees these pads come off, as if he's been tricked, as if he has been let down, as if he has no feelings towards Power whatsoever because of this. And it's just such a strange thing that she needs to have large breasts for him to be attracted to her.
Yeah, just that whole storyline to me, I was just like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, it's not like she lied about being like people wear those.
Yeah,
like girls wear those. It's not that big a deal. Anyways, so that episode though changes. It doesn't just stick to that.
Right.
It does have another moment where he's with Makima, right? And she kind of starts talking to him about sex, and it's like weirdly sensual. Like he's got the maturity of a 10-year-old.
Yes.
That's what I think is so frustrating, and probably my biggest con.
I agree with you. That's my biggest con as well. He doesn't really, like, he's 16 years old. I understand, like, puberty hits and everything. But
well, see, the thing is, you don't know that he's 16 years old. I was under the impression that he was an adult. I thought he was a young adult, but I thought he was at least 18, and so did the rest of the cast. It wasn't revealed until, like, episode 8, when they're at that dinner and they're all drinking, and he's like, "Oh, I'm underage. I'm only 16."
Yeah.
No, they say you can't drink, and then he's like, "No, it's only tea." And then he almost gets raped. But like the point is, he even as a 16-year-old should probably be more mature than he is. Like he's somehow emotionally stunted even at that young of an age. And when he's not fighting monsters, he's either trying to get laid or he's yawning. Like it just seems like he had only a couple character traits. And despite that, the show still becomes really good, in my opinion.
Well, yeah,
so after that 5th episode, what'd you give the 5th episode?
I gave the 5th episode, especially because it ends with a cliffhanger. They end up on like the 8th floor of this hotel, right? And I was like, okay, I can see that this is probably turning into somewhere interesting. I gave it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I gave it same here. So the Gun Devil is introduced in this episode. That's literally the title of the episode. And then we also get Aki's backstory and why he is so intent on being a devil slayer and also wanting to find the Gun Devil.
Yeah, it's interesting because usually when it's entitled Chainsaw Man, you would think it would be about Denji's backstory, but no, they never really show a flashback to Denji at all. It's really
we got a huge flashback to Denji in the first episode. The first episode really does explain his entire, like how his dad died and how he then had to pay off the mob and how he made friends with the little devil demon, the chainsaw demon, and then it became him so that he could fight off a bunch of zombies.
It's just throughout the show, though, you really get the backstory on Aki and Himono.
Yeah, and Aki's introduction is very interesting too, but I only wanted to talk about those first 5 episodes because it felt like its own first chapter almost of the series, and then it kind of matured itself. Not that those other jokes aren't still there, like he still is trying to get kissed, he's still trying to touch people's boobs, but like it also concentrates a lot on the overall arc, which is to find the Gun Devil, which I find much more interesting. So I agree with you. Those first 5 episodes were a little slow moving, and if we had watched any of those independently, I don't think I would have recommended watching the rest of the show.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So go on.
So the 6th episode and 7th episode reminded me a little bit of Umbrella Academy, actually. In the sense that you have all these characters, but a lot of it is just like kind of not only character development, but how are they going to take down this one monster when they're stuck in the hotel? At least that's what episode 6 is about.
Episode 6 for sure. Episode 6 was by far my favorite. Like it took over number 3 being my favorite, and now then 6 was, and I thought the show had stepped up its game.
At that moment, they have to deal with the Eternity Devil.
There was so many things going on, but they were stuck in almost like an escape room style hotel room floor. They had and the humor really came out here, where I was actually agreeing with it, because Denji, instead of being freaked out like everybody else or trying to break his way free, he sees that time has stopped and he thinks, this is awesome.
Yeah.
No, that is exactly what if I had the ability to stop time, I've always thought I would get in some rest. Can you imagine not needing sleep and then being able to turn time on and then actually just never sleep?
The clock starts stuck at 8:18.
Oh, man. Yeah, I thought he had a great idea there. And then the rest of the team, which at this point we can introduce all the other characters. You do have Denji. Makima is too big of... she's in charge of the entire Public Safety Devil Extermination Special Divisions. Yeah. And this is only Division 4. And so Aki is actually the leader here, and I call him the chain smoker devil, even though he's not really a devil, but he chain smokes like a crazy man. And he apparently learned it from Himono, who his previous partner, who's also on the team. She's Eye Patch Girl. She has a ghost devil hand that she can call on her own whim. Like she has a contract with a ghost devil.
I think she also is the oldest. Oh, we didn't even mention...
She is the oldest.
We didn't even mention how Aki in episode 4, although I did not like the episode, has his own devil. My favorite devil, actually.
Well,
the Fox Devil.
Well,
the Fox Devil was my favorite because not only did it look cool, but also I felt like it was the most powerful, and it was my favorite.
No, it wasn't the most powerful. Later on, we'll see why it's not the most powerful, but it does have a really cool entrance.
Yeah.
It can just bust in and eat something, kind of like the snake devil that we learned about later. But he also has the cursed devil. However, when he uses or calls upon the cursed devil, and that's by pulling out his blade, his sword, he ends up like taking a year off of his life or something. It was like counting down.
Yeah.
And he used up most of it later on.
It reminded me of the Eyes with Death Note, where it's like if you accept that offer, then you're going to like cut down half your lifespan. It's a little different here, but... Yeah.
Okay, so Aki is the team leader. You have Himono, who is the oldest, so she has seniority. And Aki and Himono have like a will they, won't they thing going on. And then you have the rookies, who include Denji and Power, who Power's, to me, like Harley Quinn. She even has a blood hammer. So it's like that comparison. She also has 1,000 IQ, apparently.
That was one of my comparisons to this show, actually, Harley Quinn. Strangely enough, I didn't think that was going to be that way.
She also feels like evil Ed. Like, she's just that chaotic.
Yes, no, she was Ed on steroids. I didn't think there was a way that could happen. Ed from Cowboy Bebop. But yeah, like even crazier, which I didn't think you could make a character like that, but apparently you can.
And then we have two other rookies. We have Kobini.
Yeah.
Kobini, and she is a 20-year-old, very nervous, but when she does use her abilities, not like supernatural abilities, but like her innate talent, she can really fight. The problem is she has constant PTSD, and she's really only there for the money. And so like whenever anything crazy happens, she always clams up or freaks out. In this point, she even like tried to kill Denji. But so did the other rookie, Hirokazu Arai. He's 22 years old. And he's like the ace attorney of the Devil Hunters, where he just, everything he says has to be the classic anime.
Also, yeah, no, it kind of looks like the ace attorney as well. If we could like circle back to Kobini, one thing I really liked about episode 6 as well was, even though it did have that humor that we were talking about, and it all took place in like this one floor, it also seemed kind of creepy. Like like not only the devil, but also
20 minutes they achieved a lot.
But also with like just the characters, you have practically all of them, even Power, who we've seen work with Denji throughout the whole entire series, turn and be, because the Eternity Devil offers to eat
Power
Denji.
Was honestly, I think, just having fun. Like, I don't think she actually was afraid of anything, so she was just like, oh, everybody else wants to kill Denji?
But the reason the Eternity Devil says if he's able to, eat Denji, then therefore he'll let everyone else go off the floor.
Yeah, once they're in the hotel rooms and the floor long enough, they find out that the monster that's controlling them, as you said, is the
Eternity Devil.
And it's, like, following them down the hallway and getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Because at first it was just a small, tiny head.
Yeah, and every time they slice it, it seems to grow. And it does feel pain, but it has the ability to not show its weakness, its heart, and that's so it thinks that it can't die. However, it is afraid of Denji, and so it's asking for the team to kill Denji and then give it its body, and then it will let them free.
I also like the character building moment with Aki, where it was like, yes, he's the team leader. He is one of the people who had the biggest problems with Denji, but he even knows not to like sacrifice Denji just so everyone else can live.
Well, Aki, like Denji, has a crush on Makima. Mm-hmm. So it came down to that being the first scenes that we saw between the two of them. It was also, it felt like by now the series had kind of made Aki the punching bag. It felt like even though he was the most reasonable, even though he was the most sane out of the entire crew and had the most emotion and compassion towards people, the most empathy, that the show wanted to kind of make fun of him for it.
Yeah.
He wasn't even like overly emotional. He would just cry if someone died alone in his room.
Basically, he was the only character that acted normal. Every other character had some type, like, used their main trait.
Like, most other animes would have been the main character. And I sneakily think that he is the main character of this show.
You can make the argument.
First few episodes that we see him in, he's just getting his ass handed to him because he tries to warn Denji to leave by, like, kicking his ass. And then as soon as he turns around, Denji just comes up and kicks him in the balls, like, 50 times until he bleeds and just like falls over. And then afterwards, Makima, instead of like kicking out Denji or anything, she has him become his roommate. Like, she forces Aki to take Denji in and then take power in. And I just feel bad for the dude after a while. Yeah. And so, yeah, he is the only one fighting to say, no, we aren't going to give up Denji and send him into this devil. However, that's exactly what ends up happening. Denji pulls out his powers.
I was waiting for Himono to turn because I was like, I can see it in I can just see it in the way the story's going because she's like the two main pillars. Once one of those pillars falls, Denji is going to be going into the Eternity Devil's mouth, and that's exactly what happens. Himono is like, you know what? It's just you need to die, and then Denji just kind of sacrifices himself. He's like, you know what? Whatever. I'm just gonna do it, and he jumps in, and that's where episode 6 ends.
He didn't say whatever. He said, I'll do it, but I'm gonna fight the hell out of it. And even if I win, you guys owe me or something. Yeah. We're even. And so he jumps in there. He starts fighting it. He does a good job, but then it seems like the other demon gets the upper hand. But then he starts biting it and using its own blood as his own sustenance to keep himself alive. And then 3 days later, literally 3 days of hotel fighting later, he beats the thing up.
And I forgot if that's where we got the revelation where if Denji drinks blood, he basically is...
No, it's not, because he was biting onto the character in Meowie's Whereabouts, the bat character, right, to get blood back and then cure himself. So yeah, he's been doing that the whole time.
3 days later, yeah, the Eternity Devil is just like, oh my god, I cannot take this pain anymore. Here's my heart. Please just kill me. Yeah. And then, yeah.
I give that whole episode an 8, but again, it's my favorite so far in the series. And then we roll around to episode 7, The Taste of a Kiss, where they're kind of celebrating the fact that they've just escaped this hellhole and everybody's okay. And there's a bunch of more cast members we're not going to get into, but Mikima's also there. So Denji obviously is like conflicted because, first of all, he's got Himeno, who's promised him a kiss because of saving them from the hotel.
Even that scene, I was like, why? Why is this so important?
Yeah, but it's important because right now, when they're at this dinner, he doesn't want to kiss her in front of Mikima because he's got a bigger crush on her.
Like Gossip Girl.
So so Himono ends up getting so drunk, though, she doesn't care that he doesn't want to kiss her. And this is where it becomes like, wow, this is kind of the underage thing really plays a factor. Mm-hmm. But she like starts to make out with him at the table. And what happens?
And she throws up in his mouth. Yeah. And I put in my notes, hated the gulping sound after the vomit kiss. Oh God, I had like a visceral reaction to that. I was like, no.
So when it comes to the stuff I didn't like, I did find that the grossest scene wasn't a dead devil. And you saw the guts and stuff. Yeah. It wasn't the zombies. It was when he swallowed the puke. Yes, that was by far. And the name being The Taste of a Kiss, being the name of the episode, is just the extra kiss on top. It was, wow. And so he goes to the bathroom, starts throwing up. The other rookie, like this is definitely a bonding episode because the other rookie comes in there, the one who wanted him dead, Hirokatsu. And they kind of have their moment of like, oh, I was jealous of you. I'm sorry about that. And he's like, why are you jealous of me? I literally just swallowed puke.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that scene. But then it ends with them all kind of disbanding and Himono taking Denji home, but to her home, right? Yeah. What would you give this episode?
I gave it an 8 out of 10. I gave the prior one a 9 out of 10. I really like how they resolved the Eternity Devil storyline in this episode. Kind of the second half, I was like, I could take it or leave it. I was like, it's entertaining for what it is, I guess.
I gave the last episode an 8, but I was tempted to give it a 9. So I see where you're coming from there. This episode, I gave a 6, though. I just don't like the ending scene because despite Denji's rampant horniness and the fact that he probably would not feel like he was being taken advantage of. You have the oldest character of the group, Himeno, right? And she's taking him to her place, throwing him on her bed, and then even though she's blackout drunk, getting on top of him, asking if he wants to have sex, being all like, it was a little cringy to me. And then the next episode, if that wasn't bad enough, you get the very first scene where you see the same scene from her perspective. First, you saw it from Denji's perspective, where he's waking up groggily, being like, where am I? And she's like, oh, let's have sex. And now you're getting it from her, where she's stumbling around her apartment, and somehow that's supposed to make you feel more empathetic towards her. I don't get it. The one nice thing is that they have Denji have second thoughts and be like, no, I don't actually want to be statutorily raped. So instead they don't have sex. And in the morning, Himeno apologizes for her actions and they both agree to try to help each other get with different people. So Himeno really likes Aki and always has. And when Denji asked why, he said, what do you like about him? And she says his face in subtitles, but the word for his face is only one word apparently in Japan, so it was just cow. so I don't know. It made me laugh.
But talking about
and then she promised to help him get with Makima. So that was the start of episode 8.
Yes, and there's a moment in episode 8 very soon afterwards. And I think everyone that has seen Chainsaw Man knows what I'm talking about. Makima, she dies.
Well, yeah. So she's on the bullet train. That's literally the bullet train in China, or sorry, in Japan. And like they're going to Tokyo, or is it to Kyoto?
To Kyoto. That's where it is.
It's okay. And so they're on that, and she gets a bullet to the head, which I found really funny.
But that wasn't it, because then it cuts a commercial, at least on Hulu. Okay. and then when we come back, it's like everyone gets taken out. Literally, Denji gets a bullet to the head.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what it looked like.
Yeah. So they're all eating the rest of division, or Aki, Denji, and Power are all eating ramen at this ramen place, and then Denji's past comes back to bite him because it was the grandson of one of the zombie people from the first episode, and he apparently has katana powers, which are very similar to Chainsaw Man powers. But before he even gets a chance to use those, he shot Denji in the head, and then Himeno also gets shot. And the only one left standing, right now is Aki, because like the hut explodes or something. And then we see all these cutscenes to other division leaders and the rookies getting shot up and killed. Yeah. So like guns were a big deal in the show because of the gun devil that they're all searching for. And so the only way that people get guns now is really with association to the gun devil. I think
this episode is called Gunfire, right? Or something
it's called Gunfire. And the only one left standing is Aki. And that's crazy because Aki is probably the weakest one out of Himeno, Power, and Denji. And so we're like, oh no, he's screwed. But then you remember his backstory and you can feel the buildup happening. And it's like, oh, he's going to use his one card that he hasn't played yet, which is that sword that he's been saving for his brother's killer. And he pulls it out and he uses the curse demon to actually be able to kill this Katana Man. And at first you're like, oh man, he survived. What's going to happen now? And then this random girl shows up, like Sword Art Online, and she just raises Katana Man from the dead, which sucks because it's like, okay, now he has to fight it again, and he doesn't have any sword bullets left. So he uses his fox guy, right? The fox devil to try to eat it, and then it like busts out of that as well.
Well, yeah, the fox devil is like, what you gave me was not human or devil. Like, this is something completely different. And then you just see like the inside of the fox devil just split open.
I thought the fox devil died there. Apparently it isn't dead because of what people say later on in the show. But yeah, that was a really crazy moment. We're seeing a lot of people dying. We've seen the rookies die. We've seen about to be Aki's death, because this is when the Katana Man does beat him up and gets and stabs him and is about to finish him off. And what happens?
Himeno, in like her final act, basically uses her ghost devil, and the ghost devil is like, there's no way we can fight this thing. And she's like, look, I'm going to give it everything, and I just need you to try and save
she only, because she gave up her eye, she only had power of the ghost devil hand. And the hand wanted out. The hand was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not fighting for you right now. And so Himeno promises everything about her life to the ghost demon if it saves her friend.
And you see it during the fight. Loves. You see it during the fight. Like, there's just parts of her that continually are disappearing.
Well, because it's a ghost, she like literally just loses them.
Right.
So like her arm just disappears. I thought that was really effective. I think this is probably everybody's favorite episode.
Because then she ends up dying at the end because Akane comes out with her devil and basically just kills
Akane being the little girl, but by doing the fight with the ghost devil, it provides enough cover, I think, for Aki to get away. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
So Power and Aki kind of just run off, leaving Denji's dead body as well as an empty ghost where Himeno used to be.
Yeah. And overall, I gave this episode a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I gave it a 9. Definitely my favorite episode of the entire series. And where the show stepped up its game, and I thought, I'm just going to be engaged in this thing for the rest of it. And it'll probably lead me to watch the rest of whatever anime that comes out afterwards, because it doesn't complete after the season. In fact, they're only like 20% done with the source material. And it's really all this stuff, like, yes, the animation is amazing. It's the same people who do Attack on Titan.
I was going to say, this is Attack on Titan. The main character can literally turn into a monster at any moment, but it's like one of the protagonists.
Well, it's a common theme. The monster fighting devil demons, that type of stuff is all common theme in anime. You even have that other show on Netflix that's called like Devil Slayer or something, right?
Right, yeah.
But you really do have to go back to the source material when it comes to the twists like this. So you can blame them for being so immature early on.
Well,
but you can also say this is awesome with the amount of like what's going to happen next. It's so unpredictable.
No, the second that this happened, I was like, oh, wait a minute. What they're doing here is they are pulling an Invincible, and not an Invincible the show. I'm talking about the comics. If you remember when we were doing that show, I remember I did research for it, and I saw that like the first 6 issues are the most like kid-friendly thing ever until the twist in the 7th issue happens.
And then it continued that pace too, because like you would watch those episodes, and a good 50% of it would be like, am I 5 years old? Am I watching this as like a child? And then it would step up and be like crazy R-rated murder.
But here, I thought they did it even better. Let's get into episode 9, because I really want to talk about this one as well. You said episode 8 was your favorite. Episode 9 was probably mine.
From Kyoto?
Yes.
This one I called bleak, dark, and no boob jokes. But 9 is kind of like the revenge of all the people who have been murdered.
It starts off with Ghost Devil, and its final seconds before it just dissipates, it is able to jumpstart Chainsaw Man.
Yeah, the hand. That was specifically the hand, because What's-Her-Face still had control over it because of the eye that she gave up. So Himono was the one who pulled that before just completely losing her earthly connection.
And then we got like the awesomest Chainsaw Man, like Katana Man. We got a fight in the last episode, but this was like, they were really building it up. And then right before they're about to get into battle, it cuts to the intro. And so
Seems to do that a lot.
Yeah.
There are episodes too where he doesn't even turn into Chainsaw Man, which I found pretty effective. For honestly going into this series, I thought the entire show was him as a chainsaw.
Just him.
I didn't think he could talk. I thought that this was just a guy who in the first episode we see turn into a chainsaw demon and then stays a chainsaw demon throughout the entire. I was shocked when he spent so much time as Denji. And I didn't.
You know what it is? It reminds me a lot of just like any superhero movie where it's like you have Peter Parker, Clark Kent, whatever identity, but then Chainsaw Man is just kind of like you always like seeing the hero in their costume with like Superman, and they don't overutilize you.
That's what I'm talking about. They
use
it so specifically during the coolest action moments that it doesn't ever become desensitized.
Yes.
So whenever it comes out, you're excited. However, if he was just walking around normal day doing random stuff as that character, you probably wouldn't be as cool with it.
So crazy stuff happens still on the train. It turns out that after the intro, Makima is still alive.
Okay, so Makima's not still alive. At this point, I'm pretty sure Makima's not human. Like, there's just been so many hints of what's going on with her.
She turned into WandaVision, it felt like. But WandaVision from the second Doctor Strange movie, where she's just pure out crazy.
Well, she goes to a specific, like, hut, and she orders these on death row inmates, and somehow they're available for release at like any whim's notice because she's able to get them in front of her before she can even go back to Tokyo or Kyoto, whichever end she was going from. Yeah. And she's able to perform the ceremony where she kills off all of the thugs who I think were connected to the mafia just by exploding them from hundreds of miles away.
It's worth noting, by the way, that Katana Man actually is able to defeat Chainsaw Man.
Several times.
So and even in the beginning of this episode, that's where the aftermath comes in. And these death row inmates, they just say the names of the people that
she performs a ritual and she kills them.
Yeah, and they just pop into bubbles. The bloody bubbles.
Akane Sawatari, the villain girl, she knows what's going on. She's like, oh, this must mean Makima's alive because all her henchmen are dying.
If you've seen Spontaneous, it's a lot like that.
And right when they're still about to grab the body, which they need, of Denji, they want his heart for the gun devil. But right before they're about to actually be able to take it, we get one final reveal about who survived. And it wasn't... unfortunately, it wasn't the Ace Attorney guy. He had actually given his life and stepped in front of a bullet so that
it was meant for Kenobi,
so that Kobini could survive. And Kobini was able finally to redeem herself for trying to kill Denji earlier on in the season by jumping over the snake that Akane what is it called when you summon it, and she like beats up everybody.
Ton of acrobatics. It's the only time I think throughout the whole entire series that we ever see her use her skills as a fighter.
But if you remember, Himono even said earlier on that she had the talent to do stuff like that, to be a really good killer, but that she was just too caught up in her own fear. But because she was so mad at having lost her friend there, and to someone who had like sacrificed themselves, she was able to put out of her mind her PTSD for a moment and show off her true skill and save Denji's body, which they could then resuscitate.
Save the top half of Denji's body.
Well, no, even the bottom half, they had to just bring it back and then connect him, and then it molded itself.
There's a sad scene though where she's like holding him up. Obviously, Chainsaw Man isn't dead, but he's just not alive at that moment. And she's like, "Look, I'm sorry for like trying to kill you days earlier." Talking about the 8th floor episode, the 6th episode, and she's just like starting to cry. And I did feel for her. I felt like that was the most human she got throughout the series.
Yeah, and what I was saying about Makima not being human, she never loses her cool, even when she's like murdered. She never even acts. She never cries. She also has those weird eyes. Like there are so many hints that she's not of this world, and later on we get that confirmed because the best devil hunter around, who looks like Constantine, who they just called Teacher, right? And he's like a constant alcoholic, hangs out in graveyards, but he's the guy that they use to train up either their devil hunters or, in this case, Denji and Power, so that they can become stronger, so they can actually fight Katana Man later on. He has a meeting with Makima where he says, "Are you sure you didn't know anything about what was about to happen, where they killed off most of our division? Because the only reason we let you live is because you apparently are supposed to be helpful, like to humanity." So that's where I thought, is she an angel? And then it occurred to me the front part of the credits, where one of the things is the thing with the halo on it, and I'm like, she's the angel. And I was like 100% convinced. And then like the next episode later, you have literal angel devil, and that's who I've been seeing. So she might not be an angel, but she's definitely not a devil, and she's definitely not a human.
Yeah, and a lot of people. So that episode ends with like basically a lot of just the division people that are working for it resigning, and
there's one in particular. Everybody else was dead. Right?
And I had to give this episode again a 9.5 out of 10.
So you gave 9.5
out of 10.
I gave this one an 8. I didn't find it as good as Gunfire. Gunfire, I think, is all time going to be one of my favorite episodes for anime. And then episode 10, though, comes along, Bruised and Battered. Aki is still alive. He wakes up in the hospital. I think it's the best title because it really does. It slows down.
Yes.
It goes from so much
pacing,
battle.
Yeah, it's not.
And it kind of needed to. It needed to gain its own breath back. And it's how to prepare for war. We have Denji and Power going to learn or work with the teacher guy, who's the same person who taught Himeno and Aki how to fight. So they're going to get better at doing that. But he has the added ability where he can kill them and they'll come back to life. So once they get good enough for them to actually stop him from killing them, that's a really interesting way of teaching. But then Aki's storyline is that he needs new devil contracts because he's used up his cursed devil contract. He's not... The Fox Devil doesn't want to talk to him.
The Fox Devil is annoyed. It's like, why I'm not going to work for you anymore.
And so who does he team up with then?
The Future Devil.
Yes, and the Future Devil is also in the intro. I felt like I understood the intro. Like this is the evolution. In the first couple episodes, I'm like, what is this? Like, who are these characters? This is insane when I would see that intro play. And then by episode 6, I was like, I'm understanding most, if not all the characters. I think I get it. And then as every preceding episode happened, I was like, oh no, there's also there.
Yeah, no, it's like
that. And there's a dancing Future Devil in the intro that I've been seeing the entire time, and I was like, oh, that's okay.
It's like the Cuphead intro, where it's like the more and more episodes you watch, the more you understand it. I had that realization too.
Not only that, but also the song behind it, the Kickback song, has become like one of the biggest on Spotify. It's the first one to actually break into the top 50 worldwide for any anime ever. Wow. So yeah, it's super popular, and the soundtrack is, but it's not even like, my other pro for the show is the credit sequences at the end, where they would have a different theme and animation with that. And so it was one of the first shows where I literally watched through. I don't understand the Japanese, that the title names and stuff, but I did understand definitely like how cool what the characters were doing in that and how they shifted it.
That's very Attack on Titan. I don't think they changed the credits as much, but there are certain episodes where it's like the credit animation changes. So I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised when you said that fact that like the same people working on that worked on this.
Mappa. What'd you give episode 10?
Episode 10, I thought was okay. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
I gave it an 8 out of 10. So I gave episode 9 and episode 10 8 out of 10s. And then episode 11, called Mission Start, that's where they first go into what appears to be another hotel. It could be an apartment building. I don't know. And they're fighting all these zombies that the villains, that Katana Man and Akane Sawatari, the main villain of I guess, this season, had set up to make it difficult. But they call in all their other fiends that were working
you get
for...
Shark Fiend?
For the Public Safety Devil Extermination Special Division. And Teacher says to the police, if any of these guys turn against us, these are their powers. And so we hear this narration of what each can do. And so what are the fiends that we learn?
Well, Shark Fiend...
Yeah.
He's just a massive shark head.
He can swim through walls, and then he can jump out and just eat zombies.
You have Violence Fiend. And I was wondering, that because No Country for Old Men, the reason I say that's in the intro is because the Violence Fiend specifically looks at his shoe, and that's how I realized what the reference was. But I kept on seeing him in the intro. I was like, who is he? Apparently the mask continually stays on.
Yes, because it releases gas, like poisonous gas.
Yep. And then you have Spider Devil. She is just someone who can
kind of look like a human, but then like morph into 10-legged spider that kills everybody.
And then you have Angel Devil.
Angel Devil was interesting.
Angel Devil picks up a head and just starts eating it. Well,
Angel Devil, they said straight up, like, isn't necessarily like against humans. Like, even all these other fiends, if they had their way, would still want to take over humanity. Angel Demon, really not so much. She just zaps humans of their lifespan if she accidentally touches them.
Which was funny because Aki, he learns he only has 2 years to live, I think, in the 10th episode.
Do you think that's why he handed her the handkerchief?
No, that's 100% why I did.
That's
a
good connection.
Yeah. And
cool.
so Aki, and then it turns out that Denji, they end up going up to the top floor as all the other fiends are just taking out the zombies.
Because they're looking for Katana Man specifically, Katana Devil specifically, and Aki goes off looking for, obviously, the main killer, Akane Sawatari, who had killed Himono.
Mm-hmm. And he finds her, and then
he doesn't use his power.
Yeah,
he doesn't use the future power for no reason. He just put that thing in his eye. That's the only thing the future man wanted, was to be in his eye, and he could have used it for like precognition to know what was happening. He doesn't use it. He lets the Ghost Devil come back, because it gets barfed back up, and then now it's fighting for the bad guy.
And it gets the better of him, and that's where episode 11 ends. Before we get into the intro, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I was really excited to see the next one, and at this point, I was like, okay, yes, Chainsaw Man has completely changed my opinion of the show. I was loving it at this moment. What did you give the episode?
I gave it an 8 out of 10, and I was sad just a little bit, because Gun Devil wasn't going to be the main villain of this, and I really wanted to hear more about that, but by this point, I was like, okay, they've set this up where we're going to conclude the Katana Man and Akane Sawatari storyline, and they're just the henchmen. So and then later on, I'm like, okay, so because we're only 20% through the manga storyline, Gun Devil's probably the overarching
villain. That's what I thought too.
Yeah, the biggest one, and it's cool that we did get what we got about him.
So
episode 12 is called Katana vs. Chainsaw. What do you think that one's about?
I was really excited when I saw the title for it. It starts off with Aki and Himeno, and really it's just them at a restaurant. Himeno offers him a cigarette. He ends up not taking it.
It's a repeat conversation, but it's done before the other conversation. So Himeno, I think this is like her last goodbye.
Okay.
So earlier we saw her introduce him to cigarettes and get him smoking. But this scene happened when Aki was even younger, when he was underage. Mm-hmm. And when she learned that, she pulled back the cigarette because she didn't want to get him addicted. It's weird. They did a lot of cigarette stuff. And I guess in Japan, it's still like a bigger thing. But in the U.S., if you see a cigarette ad, you're not in the U.S.
Yeah.
So it just felt a little odd. However, it's very Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, yes. No, absolutely. And the main reason for it is because when he's fighting the Ghost Devil opens up its hand and there's a cigarette on it that says easy revenge.
The Ghost Devil lets him go. The Ghost Devil drops him even though it was about to choke him out. And again, because of Himeno, some spiritual connection she has with it, where the last thing she was able to write to him on that cigarette was revenge.
Easy
revenge. So he takes the cigarette, he murders the Ghost Devil, which feeds off fear, and because he's not afraid, it's really not tracking him.
And Akane is like, what?
Yeah. And then Akane sits there, and I thought that she would have more at her disposal because she seemed like a bigger villain. Sorry, not Akane, but really he's able to disarm her because Kobeni gets up behind her with a knife, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I thought for sure that she was going to like slit her throat. I was just like, is it? But it turns out that Aki is like, don't kill her yet.
Yeah, and Kobeni's like, I just want my raise. Chainsaw Devil is in the middle of a fight with Katana Devil on a
Katana
train.
Man. Yeah, no, there's like a big they blast out of a wall, they get onto a train. It reminded me a little bit of John Wick. It was such a cool fight scene. This was definitely by far one of my favorite fight scenes out of the whole entire series. I mean, you just see like even the sounds, just all like the slicing and the metal.
People compared it to the Spider-Man train fight scene.
Yeah, I definitely can see
that. To me,
it
wasn't as good as episode 8's fight scene, but maybe that's just because I wasn't ready for episode 8's fight scene, and this one I was prepared for.
But both those fight scenes I thought were great. Whenever I saw Katana Man, just such a cool villain, and yeah, it turns out
slicing people up. He has that ability to stoop down and then like in a Super Mario or Super Smash game, like fly forward. What's that character in that game that can do that?
Captain Falcon can do it.
Captain Falcon can sort of do it, yeah, and he'll just like slice whatever is in the middle.
Yeah,
and so he just keeps on kicking off Chainsaw Man's limbs, right?
Yep.
One by one.
And then Chainsaw Man is like, I can still fight because he still has the chainsaw in his face. And then...
in his head, yeah.
Yeah. Katana Man slices off part of the chainsaw in his face and is able to still speak. This is where my suspension of disbelief went a little bit. Like, I felt like they stretched it a little bit far, but I was willing to go with it because Katana Man is like basically gloating over the fact that he's going to be able to kill...
Well, see, this is the opposite Thanos, because it was like, I should have gone for the head. He did go for the head.
You think it would just be a lob off thing, though, where he would just be able to decapitate Chainsaw Man?
No, I mean, it is a chainsaw. So, like, he didn't go for he wasn't able to slice his neck. Like, Chainsaw was ready for that. So he blocked sort of, but the chainsaw on his head, the forehead just popped off. But what he wasn't expecting, what Katana Man wasn't expecting, was that Chainsaw Man, with his training with the teacher guy, had learned that he can not only make his arms into chainsaws, but his leg into a chainsaw. And so in a previous, people pointed out that in the previous episode where the teacher had said something in front of the dying bodies of Power, or just the exhausted bodies of Power and Denji, that Denji had his pants ripped. And the teacher was like, that was your best effort yet. So that was that was, it didn't show us that he had the chainsaw leg, but it was definitely foreshadowing that he did. And so in this episode, he uses that chainsaw leg, and Katana Man notices way too late and just like a Looney Tunes character just splits down the middle and falls over dead. Right?
I have to be a little honest. I'm sad Katana Man died. I really liked him as a villain, but I understood why they did it. Obviously, this was the finale, and that was going to happen.
He's not dead though, because like they just put him back together and then tied him up. And then in the ending scene was that Aki and Chainsaw Man were just deciding to kick him in the balls as much as possible.
Yeah, that part of me, I was like, no.
It's immature, like it. But it makes more sense when you think about what the cigarette said, where it was just said easy revenge, and it's like
it's also a callback. It's a callback to the 4th episode. But yeah,
like I understand why it doesn't fit as much with Aki's character as far as where his maturity is at, but because it's sort of Himeno's last wish, and he had just said to Denji, Himeno wouldn't want this. And then he thinks back to the cigarette, and it is what she would want. She'd want that easy revenge. So in that way, it made more sense to me than seeing Aki get beat up in the first 4 episodes or whatever.
So then we get the final 5 minutes. This was strange to me. I definitely enjoyed it, but I was trying to figure out what exactly was going on.
A lot of foreshadowing to future events, I'm sure. We didn't get a gun villain. We didn't get... the battle felt a little fast to me. He didn't use the future devil, as Aki didn't. And we didn't find out what Makima actually was. And then we just get this question as to what was that dream that we had already seen before at the very beginning of the show. But what does it mean? We got a little bit more of it this time. And he's like, don't open the door. So
his dog's telling him not to open the door. Makima is reporting back to her boss what happened. It turns out that Kane dies straight up because the devil of hers, she was about to give information. The devil was just like, nope, and just killed both of them.
She wasn't about to give information.
But they had her because
it's the equivalent of the like tooth that you can put cyanide capsules in or whatever that spies use, where they like crunch down when they're like caught so that they die. The snake demon just comes out and eats her. But overall, I give this finale probably a 7. So all the previous three episodes, I gave 8s. And then this one, because it's not that I wanted more, it's just that my expectations were out the roof. I just wanted to be surprised. And to me, it just felt like I wanted more answers. And I understand why it's overall, I still would give the show an 8. And that's crazy when you think about how annoyingly immature the characters are in those first few episodes, but somehow they grow on you. And I think this one reviewer put it best. They said Chainsaw Man sucks viewers into its fast-paced, subversive storyline and makes them fall in love with its diverse cast of psychopathic yet sympathetic personalities.
I gave
the main character is a psychopath.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he's morphed into this devil creature, he doesn't care when people dies. He only really cares if Makima dies, and if she does, he would only really care for a few days. But then somehow a little part of him is still human. It's very finessed in a way, and the only character that is still my favorite probably is Power, because she like clearly just wouldn't care if anybody died.
So here's the situation. I gave the final episode a 9. It gave me practically everything I wanted. All the action, death, and also mystery, especially with those final 5 minutes that we all saw. But I had a realization after episode 9. Episode 9 I watched last night, and after I saw it, I paused it and I kind of turned it off. I watched the first 3 this morning because I was...
You rewatched the first 3?
No. I saw the last 3 this morning. Okay. And I'm not sure if I'll feel the same way about it in a few days, but honestly, move aside Primal, because I think Chainsaw Man might be my number 1 anime of all time. And...
Well, Primal is it really anime?
Well, on top of it, out of all the 400 shows that we've reviewed, it's probably my favorite show that we've done.
Ever?
Yes.
Wow.
And I'm so happy because I said in my best of 2020 review, I said, it always happens at the beginning of the 100s. My number 1 favorite pick. Why Women Kill was 202. The Offer was 306. If 401.
Look, if you think that truly, then you should watch more anime, because I'm not trying to downplay this one, but like there's a lot of things you probably liked in this that you just haven't seen that much because you haven't watched any other series. But there are a lot of animated series that out there that have similar twists, great twists that if you're able to deal with the immaturity, because there's a lot of that, then you will fall in love with the characters by the end of it.
Look, in terms of anime, I do have to see like a ton that people always like talk about.
I don't know if you have to, but like some people who are, if you like it as much as you were talking about, which it sounds like you do, then yeah, go check some other out.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that out of all the anime I've seen so far, this 100% was my favorite, and I think, yeah, again, my favorite show.
If you say that, you have to list the other ones, and I don't think that you've watched that much else.
Anime? Yeah. I've seen Berserk, Cowboy Bebop, Primal, Avatar: Last Airbender isn't really another anime. Attack on Titan.
Attack on Titan is probably the most similar. There's only other couple things to point out. I think that the Gun Devils, what they're trying to do is they've collected all these bullets that it's left over, right? And then they've put it together, and now it's like pushing towards the thing or pulling towards it. So they're going to use it like a magnet to find the Gun Devil, which once it's found, it's probably going to try to kill them.
That explains in the intro why you see that.
Yes, but the interesting thing about those gun bullets is it reminds me so much of Iron Giant, right? Because when his pieces will always try to go back to their origin and like fit together like a magnet, and so like what if they got it and it was just a big Iron Giant? So this premiered on October 11th on Japanese TV, Hulu, and Crunchyroll. They're not sure about a second season, but because it has an 8.7 on IMDb, 18,000 votes, and it's probably
they have to make a second season. Yeah, they have to make a second.
And
season.
Apparently, this isn't even like hitting the coolest part of the storyline. Does that make sense?
It gets crazier.
This was supposed to almost be preamble to what the coolness of the show is going to turn into. So if you liked it so far, you're probably going to continue. So you give it a overwhelmingly positive.
I would give the overall show 9, maybe even a 9.5.
Yeah, I think you gotta give it a 10 if you're gonna say it's the best show that you've ever seen for our podcast.
For the podcast, I'm not saying it's one of the best shows I've ever seen. A 9.5 does round up to a 10. So yeah,
just the way you talked about it. If you're gonna take all 400 shows or whatever that we've done and say this is the best, and you don't sound like you're even conflicted about that. It might be a little recency bias, but yeah, sure. 10 is
it's the first one I've given. So
okay. Yeah. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.